On the day of our engagement party, Henry bailed in front of everyone. I got on stage with a mic and announced, "Today is actually my promotion celebration, so enjoy the food and drinks." Later, when Henry tried to plan another engagement party, I sent him an invite, saying, "The engagement is off, but come to celebrate my wedding." "Karina, I'm sorry, but something came up with Summer." "I need to go right now," Henry said, holding his car keys, trying to apologize. I had just changed into my dress, ready to toast, almost thinking I misheard him. "Henry, do you know what today is?" "It's our engagement party." Out of respect, my family took off time to be here, and Smith's parents are sitting at the head table, waiting. Now he's saying he needs to leave for Summer? Unbelievable. Henry was all anxious. "I've already agreed to marry you. We can reschedule the engagement, but Summer might really be in trouble." I took a couple of steps, blocking the door and meeting Henry's gaze head-on. "What if I told you nothing happened to Summer?" Henry looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, defensively exploding. "Karina, where's your heart? Summer grew up with you. It's just an engagement party, and you're getting worked up over nothing. Same story every time. Summer sabotages my engagement party, and somehow, it's me who can't stand her happiness. It's always like this. Summer can mess with me all she wants, but if I voice any complaints, I'm the one with a jealousy problem." I closed my eyes, stepped aside, and Henry rushed out the door. He pushed it so hard that it swung back and hit me, jolting me awake from shock. The host knocked on the door, asking if they could start. I stood there stunned for 3 seconds, then told her the engagement was off. I apologized and shared my new plan. Henry initially didn't want to use her, thinking women shouldn't host weddings. But after talking to her, I insisted, even though it caused some conflict between us. She was extremely professional and quickly helped me sort things out. In the reception hall, everyone was waiting for the meal to start. I took a deep breath, lifted my dress, and stepped onto the stage with the mic. "Today is my promotion party," I announced. "Enjoy the food and drinks." There was an immediate stir below. My parents and Henry's parents looked at me in shock. I didn't explain further, handing the mic to the host, who quickly brought the restless crowd to calm. Aside from the occasional curious glance, no one mentioned the engagement again. After sending the guests off, I brought Henry's parents and mine back home. I dug out the wedding rings Henry and I had bought and returned them to Henry's parents. "Uncle Samuel and Auntie, it seems it wasn't meant to be for Henry and me. Here are the rings. I hope Henry finds someone he truly loves." Henry's parents refused to accept them, saying they'd talk to Henry on my behalf. I pulled out my phone, opened Summer's Twitter, and there was her latest post. He said he'd never let go of my hand, accompanied by a photo of interlocked hands. Ironically, one hand wore the engagement ring I had chosen. Henry's parents instantly recognized his hand. Henry's mom tried apologizing for him. "Karina, this was really Henry's mistake. Could you forgive him this one time?" Smith family apologizes. I shook my head. This wasn't about them. I never blamed them. Henry makes his own decisions, and no one can control where he goes. And I won't just move past this with an apology. I've given Henry plenty of chances. Now, I'm done. Summer saying she might be in danger was just a trick on Henry. Whenever I needed Henry, something would always happen to Summer. In the end, she was always fine. That's her age-old trick that somehow always works. She was scared Henry wouldn't care for her after getting married, so she tested her importance in his heart. Time and again, Henry proved he wouldn't abandon her, despite our plans to marry. Fine, I'll be the one to walk away. I got up early for a jog, picking up breakfast on the way back. My mom hesitated, then finally asked, "Karina, what did you mean yesterday by celebrating your promotion?" I swallowed, then replied, "Mom, my boss plans to open a branch in the north and asked if I'd be interested. I think it's a great opportunity, so I agreed." "But sis, you said before that it was way too cold up there," and you wouldn't go even if threatened. My brother looked up, confused. Mom quickly inserted a straw into his drink. I grinned at him, no choice, the offer was too good. I hadn't wanted to go because Henry didn't want us to be far apart. We were about to get married, and long distance wouldn't be good for us. But now, Henry's just not worth it. When I walked into the office, my boss seemed a bit surprised. We'd worked together for years, and he knew I never changed my mind. This was the first time. I thought once you decided something, you wouldn't regret it, he said. I was already thinking of someone to replace you. Since you changed your mind, this spot is still yours. When can you go? Need any time off? I shook my head. No need, I'll be ready right away. I wrapped up my work, handed things over to my assistant, and booked a flight for the next day. After landing, I turned on my phone to find dozens of missed calls, from Henry's parents, my parents, and even my brother. But the shock was seeing Summer's name. Apparently, she and Henry tried calling back to back while my phone was off during the flight. I wasn't interested in dealing with it, only calling my parents back. They picked up quickly. Karina, landed safely? Someone there to pick you up? They say it's really cold, dress warmly. My mom started to fuss. Before she could continue, my brother grabbed the phone. Sis, that jerk Henry called today asking where you went. Don't worry, I didn't tell him. Let him stew a bit, show him what's what. I chuckled faintly. I wasn't planning on letting him stew. What's the point for someone who doesn't matter? The line went silent. I heard some pushing noises, then my brother's voice. Are you serious, sis? You're really done with Henry? Yeah, I'm done. We chatted a bit before hanging up. As soon as I got out of the airport, I hopped into a car. An old friend came to pick me up. When John found out I was coming to City B, he insisted on picking me up, so I sent him my flight details. He was behind the wheel, chatting away with me. Why are you in City B? Aren't you the one who hates the cold the most? Why didn't Henry come with you? Rubbing my forehead, I replied, I'm here for the branch office. Henry's with Summer now, I have nothing to do with him. He quickly turned his head to look at me, and I had to remind him to keep his eyes on the road. The days ahead are long, I don't plan on going off the deep end over Henry. John pulled the car over, determined to get the whole story. So, I spilled everything about Henry and Summer. Henry got it wrong from the beginning. Summer and I were never friends. From the first time I laid eyes on her, I just couldn't warm up to her. Summer was always the delicate one, always needing protection. At my birthday party, Summer claimed her parents weren't home and she was scared to be alone. Henry didn't even finish singing the birthday song and dashed out to her. The next day, he came back with a little cake to make it up to me. Don't be mad. I just felt sorry for her. Henry assured me with a hand on his chest, promising that I was the most important to him. But later, the gift I gave him showed up with Summer. Henry was off at some extracurricular class, and Summer dragged me to her place. I was forced to go. Passing through the living room, she knocked over a figurine. It shattered into pieces. She hurried to get a broom, and purposefully moved slowly. I clearly saw my name on the base of the figurine. I couldn't help but pick it up. It read, Henry is the world's biggest fool, Karina. I'd scrimped and saved for months to give that to Henry for his birthday. When he got it, he almost jumped for joy, kissing it repeatedly and swearing no one would take it away. Yet there it was, at Summer's place, broken. I swallowed my disappointment and asked calmly why the figurine was there. Summer looked sorry. Henry gave it to me. I've always wanted it, and he said he had it at home, so he gave it to me. I accidentally broke it. He'll be mad if he finds out. Karina, please keep it a secret from me. I was too young to hide my feelings, so I ran away with just the broken base. I didn't speak to Henry for days. When Henry came to see me, I thought he was going to apologize like last time. But he came with a stern face. I only lent the figurine to Summer. And I told her she could call me if her parents were away. I apologized before, and you said you weren't mad. So why are you causing her trouble? Trouble for Summer? I was clueless. When did I ever do that to her? Henry was seething. Don't play dumb. Didn't you go to her place and break the figurine on purpose? Sniffling, I blurted out the truth. Summer said you gave it to her and she broke it. I never touched it. But Henry didn't believe it. Karina, if you're gonna lie, at least come up with something better. Summer treasured that figurine, even borrowing it in a box. How could she break it? Even if you're upset, you shouldn't accuse her. Henry scolded me as I tried not to cry. I refused to apologize to Summer, leading to a lengthy Cold War. Things only thawed when Summer had family trouble and was taken back by her grandma. I never thought Summer would come back around. By then, Henry and I were official. He organized a birthday party for me. Summer, in a white dress, timidly followed Henry and wished me happy birthday. My friends, unsure of who she was, stood awkwardly until Henry introduced her as his sister. I frowned, unhappy, but Henry's pleading eyes silenced me. Summer, however, wouldn't let it go. She pulled a figurine from a box at the door, offering it to me. Karina, this figurine caused fights between you and Henry before. I'm giving it back, hoping you're not angry and that you two get along. The mood turned icy. Henry and I both looked uneasy. Summer's appearance made my birthday especially awkward. Worse, Henry and I fell into a pattern. Whenever I needed him, Summer needed him too for some trivial matter. Henry said she was alone here without friends, so he had to help her. But I was different. I had lots of friends. I struggled to explain to him that some things are different when a boyfriend helps than when a friend does. He understood I was uneasy and promised I'd always come first, even arranging a special trip for me. For that, I had to turn down a project from my boss. I remember my boss frowning, saying, "You should know what this project means." I did. It meant a promotion, a raise, and recognition for my years of hard work. Still, I gave it up. But Henry didn't show up. I found out via Summer's Twitter. She posted a photo with no caption. In it, Summer wore a revealing swimsuit, Henry's hand at her waist, as she looked pale and frail. The photo left much to the imagination. I stayed holed up in the hotel, not leaving for a day and a night. Henry finally rushed over, eager to explain. So, the day we were supposed to leave, Summer suddenly called saying she'd just nearly drowned. She was super scared. Henry rushed off to see her before he even told me what was happening. Turns out it was nothing serious. Summer was learning how to swim, got a leg cramp, and swallowed some water. She asked Henry to stay with her for a bit because she was still shaken up. I listened to the whole thing with a straight face, thinking about breaking up. But then Henry just held my hand and pleaded, saying he realized his mistake. He promised it wouldn't happen again and mentioned that our families had already picked a date for our engagement. I was just staring at the engagement ring, and a strange thought crossed my mind. Maybe if we got engaged, Henry would finally choose me for sure. Somehow, I found myself agreeing. Reality gave me a hard slap afterward. Saying I wasn't upset would be a lie. Henry and I grew up together, but some new person walks in and everything changes. John tightened his grip on the steering wheel the more he listened. Just before he could blow up, my phone rang. It was Henry. Karina. We're getting married. Can't you just grow up a bit? This time Summer's really in trouble. Don't act like you did when we were kids. Don't be petty, okay? I let him finish, and then I quietly replied, okay, I'll be the bigger person. He probably didn't expect me to be so cooperative this time, so his tone softened. Then, well, could you apologize to Summer? Just apologize, and everything will be fine. I gripped my phone tighter and double-checked with Henry. Are you sure? Apologizing to Summer will make everything okay? He nodded frantically over the phone, saying yes. Wow, he said it himself, it's over. I chuckled and said into the phone, sorry, Summer, for wasting so much of your time. Hope you two are happy. Before Henry could reply, John snatched the phone from me. You'll regret this. John yelled at Henry before hanging up, then looked at me awkwardly. I couldn't help it. You're not mad, are you? I shook my head with a smile. Of course not. Why would I be angry at a friend because of some stranger? I wasn't sure how Henry managed to find me. When I opened the door, he looked disheveled. Henry? Why are you here? Henry stared at me intensely. What did you mean by what you said that day? What did I say? I was a bit confused for a moment. Henry pressed his lips together. You wished Summer and me happiness. Why would you say that? Oh, right. All those times he ran to Summer, I just thought he had feelings for her. Was I wrong to wish them well, and he actually liked someone else? If he crushed on someone else, maybe my choice of words wasn't the best that day. I thought for a moment and decided to take it back. Sorry, I didn't know you don't like Summer. Wanna tell me who you really like? I can wish you luck with them instead. Henry's eyes were slightly red as he looked at me. You know I didn't mean it like that, Karina. You know I only love you. I've told you, I'm only going to be with you. So, it was about that. How unlucky. With disdain, I dusted off imaginary dirt and moved to shut the door. But Henry held on to the doorframe, not letting it close. Really can't figure him out sometimes. I'm the one who backed out of the engagement, embarrassed myself, and yet he's acting like I abandoned him. Did canceling the engagement piss him off, and now he's just trying to be difficult with me? Karina, there was really a reason for everything that day. I'll make it up to you, with something better than last time. Henry stood there rambling while neighbors started peeking out curiously. I hated being the center of gossip, so I told Henry to wait downstairs at the cafe. Once I wrapped up work, I drove over to meet him. He was still patiently sitting there. I sat across from him, my eyes catching his phone with dozens of missed calls. All from Summer. I nodded towards it. Maybe you should take those, and then we can talk. In case it's important. But Henry didn't move. I've already told her friends. If something's up, they'll help out. Oh, I said, taking a seat. So Summer has other friends too. He looked at me all nervously, tried reaching for my hand, but I ducked away. I had my limits. Can't touch someone else's guy. Stirring my coffee, I started jogging Henry's memory. Remember when it was my birthday? Everyone was singing for me, but you went off on your own. Said she was scared alone because her parents weren't home, and you promised to be there for her. Henry, don't you remember? You also promised to spend my birthday with me. Henry quickly explained, I thought it'd be okay since you had so many people with you. I waved him off and continued. That little toy I got, I saved up for ages to buy it for you. My mom freaked when she saw the price. I held on to it for dear life because I wanted to surprise you. But then, it ended up at Summer's place. I was heartbroken. Something I worked so hard to get you just ended up with her so easily. Henry seemed desperate to justify it. She said she really liked it, but it was hard to find. Just wanted to borrow it to see. No, I stared straight into Henry's eyes. That's not it, Henry. She told me you gave it to her, then broke it herself. I cried holding those broken pieces with your name on them, waiting for you to explain. And you came, all right, to blame me for bullying her. Henry slumped a bit, no longer jumping in to defend himself. Then there's what happened after we started dating. Henry and I getting together was just natural progression. Uncle Samuel and my dad go way back. Over the years, we've always moved together. Henry and I are practically inseparable. When summer rolled around again, I thought this time I had it in the bag. Thinking back, I still get a bit sentimental. Henry. At my birthday party, Karina got me a Luffy figurine, not out of kindness, but to remind me she once beat me. It was your favoritism that gave her the confidence. She kept provoking me. Even the trips you and I had planned could get cancelled if she decided to change her mind. You're scared about her drowning, but did you ever think I might be scared too, being alone in a hotel room somewhere new? Henry, I'm afraid of the dark. My voice was super soft, nothing like when I usually mess around with Henry. But his eyes got all teary. The hotel Henry booked was deep in the mountains, an ideal spot for a hot spring. But wouldn't you know it, the power system went on the fritz, and the whole place went dark. I had childhood trauma about the dark, and Henry knew that. Even when I sleep, I keep a little night light on. That night, I didn't dare close my eyes for a second, and when Henry found me, I was too muddled to think and went along with the engagement. Little did I know it was gonna backfire miserably. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. When you left that day, I actually felt relieved. Relieved you chose her, so there was no way for me to go back. If anyone asks, make sure to tell them you were the one who didn't want me. Otherwise, it'd be pretty embarrassing. You were all about pride as a kid. Now, I've given you enough to save face, so remember that. The more I talked, the more I smiled. I just looked at Henry, and tears started streaming down his face, his hand biting into his palm. I got up to leave, and he stumbled a couple of steps and grabbed my hand. Karina, I know I messed up. I really know I messed up. I'll change. For real, I'll change. I never didn't want you. You're the only one I've ever loved. He held on to me tight, and I couldn't break free for a moment, so I just looked back at him. Henry's eyes were all red from crying. I'd never seen him like this. I tried to pry his fingers off, but he clung on, shaking his head and pleading. Don't go, Karina. But you're the one who always leaves first. I glanced down at Henry's hand. How can someone keep hurting others and still claim they love them? I just don't get it. It felt like Henry was scalded or something because he quickly let go and then tentatively reached out but held back. Did I hurt you? I'm sorry, Karina. I won't do it again. Please forgive me this once. This time I didn't say a word and turned away, pushing the door open. I didn't look back. Starting the branch office wasn't easy, and I hardly got back home. It was just 2 days before New Year when I finally went back to see my folks. Henry's place was just on the other side of the wall from mine. From my window, I could see his yard. I pulled the curtains shut, didn't look outside once. After breaking up with Henry, I deleted all his contacts. I walked past Henry's house around a dozen times over the New Year holiday but never stepped inside. Even when Henry's mom warmly invited me in for a drink, I politely declined. On the 5th day of the new year, John stopped by to wish us a happy new year. When my dad heard John had helped me out a bunch over there, he insisted he come inside for a drink to show his gratitude. I sat with them, keeping an eye on John to make sure he didn't overdo it. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a familiar figure by the window. My brother whispered to me, been standing out there all day, dunno who he's trying to impress. I signaled him to drop it and called Henry's mom to explain the situation. She quickly came out, took Henry back home, and I let out a sigh of relief. John suddenly asked, once the branch is up and running, are you gonna stay there or come back? I was caught off guard. Probably stay over there, I replied. The head office can handle itself, and I'm more free that way. John nodded and didn't press further. The boss said I worked too hard the previous year and gave me a few extra days off. I don't know how John arranged his time off, but he ended up leaving the same day and insisted on going with me. He was chatty and joking at first, but after a quick glance at the rearview mirror, his smile faded. Henry was tailing us. I looked and, sure enough, it was him. I got a headache. I thought we were clear after that conversation, but Henry seemed stubborn about it. John tightened his grip on the steering wheel and suggested, maybe you should find a new flame, make him give up. I was confused. A new flame? Where would I find one? John coughed into his fist, his ears flushing a weird shade of red. If you don't mind, I could pretend to be, just to help out. John's words that day left me a bit stunned. I wasn't sure if he was genuinely trying to help or if there was something more. Knowing him for all these years, I never sensed he felt anything beyond friendship. Henry's constant interruptions made me hesitate, but eventually, I called John to ask if he could pick me up from work. When John showed up, Henry's demeanor changed. "What are you doing here?" John chuckled, picking up my girlfriend from work. I opened the car door, and Henry hurried over to stop it. "Karina, I won't let you go with him." I calmly unfurled his fingers and got in the car. "Henry, don't be like this. You've always been generous, right?" I smiled as his hands fell to his side, and he crouched down, burying his head in his knees. Henry's figure shrank back in the rearview mirror. For some reason, a strange sense of satisfaction welled up inside me. I used to stubbornly hold Henry back, not letting him go see Summer. But he would just look at me all disappointed, telling me not to be so stingy. Now that I'm more open-minded, he's the one who's unhappy. Not long after the car started, a girl waved at us from the right front. John slowed down and stopped, asking what she needed. The girl peeked inside the car and her face changed a little when she spotted me. "John, could you give me a lift? I have something to do near your place today." John frowned, glanced at me cautiously, and shook his head. "No can do. I'm taking my girlfriend somewhere, and it's not on the way. You should take a cab." He rolled up the window and drove off, and I didn't say a thing the whole time. John felt the need to explain to me though. "She's a junior from my old lab who just transferred here. I haven't met up with her." I chuckled. "Our relationship is just pretend, so why bother explaining?" Henry is different. Every time he went to help Summer, he felt it was only natural, just friends helping each other. If I tried to stop him, I was just being unreasonable and petty. I've learned not to interfere with others' business. John watched me for a long time and realized I genuinely didn't care. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He plays the part well too. Whenever Henry's around, John is always flawless. While John and I were out for a meal, Henry sat across from us like a ghost. Midway through, John got a call from his junior again and frowned. "Look, this isn't right. You can sign up for driving lessons at a school. For a broken light, call a repairman. For a ride, just call a cab. I told you, I have a girlfriend. I don't want to upset her." Henry heard it all and slowly lowered his head. That's when Summer walked in. She immediately saw John and me sitting together and looked thrilled. "Henry, there you are. I've been looking for you everywhere. Why aren't you answering my calls?" Henry looked up, his voice hoarse. "Is something wrong?" Summer pouted, holding his hand. "The company's shifting positions, and I need to learn driving for my role. Can you teach me? I'm nervous with anyone else." I got intrigued and put down my utensils, looking their way. Henry also looked back at me. Summer's trick always worked. She always claimed she trusted no one else but Henry. And Henry, soft-hearted as ever, would run off to help her. But this time was different. Instead of agreeing, Henry looked at me, like he was expecting something. John noticed too and couldn't help but ask, "Why is he looking at you? Is he hoping you'll stop him?" I laughed and tapped John. "What are you talking about? It's none of my business." My words made Henry's posture slump. Summer turned to me, a bit affronted. "Karina, Henry and I are just friends. Friends should help each other, right?" I smiled at her. "You're right, Summer. Henry's your best friend, of course, he should always help you." She was overjoyed. "See? I told you Karina is the best. She wouldn't be jealous of you helping me." Henry, however, ignored her. John sensed something off in his demeanor, paid the bill, and left with me, leaving Summer and Henry behind. Later, I heard that Henry lost it that day. He snatched Summer's necklace, pushed her onto the floor, and her hands got cut on shattered glass. Uncle Samuel had to bail him out from the police station. Uncle Samuel called me, sounding exhausted. "Karina, I know it was Henry's fault, but could you please come see him?" Uncle Samuel was close to my dad and helped him out a lot when they were young, so after thinking it over, I agreed. I brought John with me, not deliberately, I just didn't want John to get the wrong idea. Henry was lying in the hospital bed. He brightened for a second when he saw me, only to lose it when he noticed John. I pretended not to notice. "Uncle Samuel said you were not feeling well. My dad asked me to check on you." I was polite, yet distant. I placed the flowers and fruits on Henry's bedside, not getting too close. Henry's mom looked at John and me, wanting to say something but held back. Henry shakily extended his hand, revealing our engagement ring. If I remember right, on our engagement day, he gave it to Summer. Henry spoke softly. "I didn't do anything with Summer that day. She said she wanted to see it, so I gave it to her. She said she lost it, and I thought, with the wedding ring still there, it didn't matter if this one was gone. But that day I saw her wearing it around her neck, so I took it back, Karina. Look, I got it back. So, can we go back to how things were?" He didn't say it out loud, because I raised my hand, showing him my ring finger. It was a ring from John. We had an arrangement to act as a couple. He'd help me resolve things with Henry, and I'd help him avoid marriage pressure. That day, his parents insisted he go on a blind date, so John pulled me in to cover for him. In front of his parents, he put the ring on my finger. Today, when I said I'd visit Henry, John insisted I wear it. The ring proved useful since Henry never finished his sentence. On the way out, I told Uncle Samuel that things between Henry and I were done, and hoped he wouldn't bother my life again. I threw myself into work, never thinking of Henry again. But John kept visiting, claiming it was my mom's orders to watch me eat. John has a refined look, and a bunch of fresh grads in the office are all over him. While we were eating in the company cafeteria, an intern approached John. "Mr. John, do you have a girlfriend?" John paused, then chuckled, pointing at me. "You should ask Karina." The intern was stunned, her face instantly turning red as she repeatedly apologized to me, saying she didn't mean it. I playfully nudged John's shoulder. "Weren't we supposed to split once everything was settled?" He was laughing nervously and shyly. "Your issue is solved, but mine isn't yet. Karina, I want to ask you to consider me." John insisted on taking me home. He knocked on the door for ages, but no one answered, so I couldn't help but comment. "Looks like your uncle and aunt aren't home. Maybe we should come back another day." Suddenly, there was a response from inside. We're home. Just a moment." The door opened, and her mom smiled brightly, warmly inviting me in. Uncle and aunt were bustling around, pouring me tea and washing fruits. While John went to help with the vegetables, John's mom pulled me into his room. She took out a dried mango seed from John's drawer, and I was confused. She glanced toward the kitchen, making sure John wasn't watching, and then revealed the story behind the mango seed. In junior year, John unexpectedly brought home a mango, kept it on his desk every day, but couldn't bring himself to eat it. John's mom first thought he was craving it, so she bought him a bunch of mangoes, but John didn't touch them, just kept caressing the one on his desk. Finally, she couldn't stand it and asked, and John gave a vague answer. "A classmate gave it to me." What kind of classmate gives a mango? Watching it every day but not able to eat it is strange. John's mom's question was answered after John's senior year. Many classmates came to John's house for a visit. His mom left a stack of mangoes, and John peeled one too. He shared it with all the classmates, including me. John's mom said, only the one I got was peeled by John himself. After he graduated college, his professor tried hard to keep him, but John insisted on coming back, then suddenly agreed. Then John's mom heard from my mom that I was seeing someone. The story stopped there. She said the whole time she was pushing John to date because she hoped he would move on, not really to rush him. I guess he didn't tell you he's liked you for a long time. After coming back from John's, a lot of old memories started coming back to me. In high school, people often teased me about John. When the class organized a hiking trip, John stubbornly refused to go. My seatmate said if I asked him, he'd definitely agree. For the graduation party, the culture secretary wanted John to host. He initially declined but agreed after finding out I was the female host. On the day of the graduation photo shoot, many girls asked to take pictures with John, but he refused everyone except the group photo. The only individual photo was with me. Once the truth came out, those strange things finally made sense. When I found John with that only photo, his face turned bright red. Care to explain? He just closed his eyes and admitted, "So what if I have a crush on you?" He kept his eyes closed, waiting for my reaction. My lips brushed his cheek, and his eyes flew open. Our wedding invitations went out soon after that. John told me he noticed me because he saw me give someone else, Henry, special treatment. He envied such obvious favoritism. Henry wasn't worth it, but someone else was. We chose the same hotel for our wedding as the one I was supposed to marry Henry. John said he wanted to erase my past embarrassment. I couldn't argue with him, so I agreed. While booking the venue, the staff gossiped, saying another couple was booking an engagement party with the same name as me. I laughed it off, not paying much attention. On the wedding day, as John and I stood greeting guests, I saw the opposite venue. Henry was there, wearing the same suit, looking back at me across the way. He approached, saying, "Karina, let me pay you back for what I owe." I took one of our wedding invitations and handed it to Henry. "No engagement party. Come enjoy our wedding." Henry could barely hold the invitation. Opposite, sat Henry's relatives who once mocked me. They looked as I walked the red carpet with someone else, never looking back again. Later, Summer lost her job. It was at Henry's aunt's company, and she had tolerated Summer because of Henry, but Summer messed up a huge deal. During a meeting with a client and his wife, Summer spilled tea on the client and didn't realize the gravity of the situation. She coyly asked the client for help, saying she twisted her ankle and if he could help her sit. The client's wife stormed out. Henry's aunt was furious and called Henry to pick up Summer. Henry didn't cover for her, telling his aunt to handle it professionally. Without hesitation, Summer was fired, and the word spread within the industry. She wasn't blacklisted, but her prospects were gone. Summer sought help, but Henry didn't open the door. Uncle Samuel visited my house, sighed, and told my dad Henry had finally grown up. I sat beside them, didn't say a word, just held John's hand tighter.